Well, we got problems. We are way down on compression. This is showing, obviously, a ton of cylinder leakage. Well, I think it's about time we dig into this thing, and man, I'm itching to do just that. I've owned this car for 2 weeks now, and the only thing I've done is get it off the trailer and get it in the garage.
Clutches all the way out.
As much as it killed me the last 7 or 8 days, I did not touch this car because I wanted to finish the paint correction on my twin turbo 2008 Corvette Z06, which I just finished like 5 minutes ago. Now that that's 100% done, super happy with it, now I can focus all of my attention on the Cobra. Just didn't want to be going back and forth, but if you guys have ever had a brand new project like this, you know how exciting it is and how quickly you want to just dive in head first, you know, figure out what's wrong with it, get to ordering parts and start fixing it up, and it has been killing me. So I'm excited, so let's not waste any time. Let's dive right in. We've gone over the exterior, we've gone over the motor, gone over basically everything that we can see, and the only thing that we can't see is the underside. I'm dying to see what's under there. We know it's got a solid rear axle. It allegedly has a faceplated T56. God knows what else, so let's get the lift arms under it, get it up in the air, check it out. All right, got her up in the air. Let's get under here, see what we're dealing with. Right off the bat, a little bit of surface rust, nothing to be worried about. This is pretty typical for a car that's been sitting for a long time, nothing structural. Oh boy. We've got some sort of oil leak. Don't know if that's timing cover or oil pan, or it's probably timing cover. Maybe AC compressor? I don't know. So it looks like motor oil. Or maybe even crank seal. Something up here is not happy. So there's that. Ooh. See some coolant mixed in there as well, which is probably from this whole, it's hard for you guys to see, but this whole assembly up here connected to the oil filter is your oil cooler. And it connects to the block right where that green drip is, way up there. And sometimes that can be leaky. As I mentioned in the first video, it looks like a stock lower pulley, mostly stock, you know, pulleys and all that, idlers. You can see our long tube headers up there, stock Bilstein shocks. I don't know if those are stock springs that someone cut or aftermarket, but the car definitely sits lower than factory up front anyways. Pretty clean subframe. No signs that this thing has been whacked or anything up here. The radiator support, all original. All this stuff looks all original, needs cleaned up badly, but nothing really of concern there. It's hard to tell what's leaking. Is that oil or power steering? But we got some leaks up here we got to take care of. Someone's put an alternator in this thing. That's really typical with these cars. They just blow through alternators. ACF, is that a stock OEM sticker or something else? I don't know. Anyways, moving back. Looks okay back here. Again, our long tube headers got a little bit of surface rust on them. Here's what I'm really interested in. So our T56 looks stock, but that is definitely an aftermarket clutch. What is that? Can't read what it is. It almost looks like it might even be a twin disc. Okay, there's that. Got our clutch cable. Everything here seems okay. Except that throw-up bearing right there, way up there, definitely completely shot. And then, whoa, up top there, is this a T56 Magnum? It's got the red shifter, which usually indicates it's a T56 Magnum. Are we gonna see any like stampings from RPM or anything? Let me know, guys. Where do I look to see where that would be? To me, this looks like a pretty stock T56, but again, even if it is faceplated, you wouldn't see that on the outside, as far as I know. But we definitely have a T56 Magnum shifter up there. Oh, there is a part number on it. I think that's gonna come back to being a T56 Magnum. Way up there. It's gonna be hard for me to get you guys in there, but right there. Moving back, floors look good. Pinch welds look pretty good, except for right there. Someone definitely jacked that up, but floors look good. Got some sort of cobbled together H-pipe here. Floors over here look really good. Pinch welds look good. There's a drive shaft. Someone hacked in these SLP mufflers, which clearly drag on the ground to the point that they have a hole in them. And here's the other part I'm really curious about. Is this a factory rear end? It's got this brace that's clearly welded to the tubes. Adjustable arms there. It's got Maximum Motorsports. Lower control arms. Aftermarket sway bar. Looks like we've got H&R rear springs. Strange adjustable shocks. B&M diff cover, plus this whole brace system up here that goes to these torque boxes. Like, what is this? Is this just a Mustang GT 8.8 rear end that someone did up, or is this a fully aftermarket rear end? I wonder what it's got for gears in it. Also, are these stock torque boxes? I gotta look at some pictures. Like, it looks like someone welded in these supports, and these torque boxes tearing are really common on this chassis, so I wonder. Look, it bolts into the frame up there. So someone's got a decent amount of money in the rear end here. Even though it's not the more desirable, at least for Cobras, the more desirable IRS. If someone was looking to go in a straight line pretty fast, you know, someone put a lot of money into this rear end. And there's our holes in the floorboard that caught the car on fire. On both sides. My guess is it was probably for exhaust hangers for this exhaust system. So then they gave up and just did it down there. But who knows? But should be relatively easy to patch those up. Get some new carpet in there. It looks like our rear diff is leaking as well. So that'll be a good chance to open this up and see what the hell it is and what we got for gears and whatnot. But yeah, overall, not too shabby. Obviously needs cleaning and a lot of other stuff, but no major structural concerns or anything like that. Pretty clean car. You can tell it wasn't, you know, driven in the snow or in the winter in salt or anything like that. Just a summer cruiser or summer beater, I guess in this case. So there's a pretty generic overview of the underside of the car. Nothing really surprising. We knew it had some work done to the transmission. We knew it had a solid rear axle, but I definitely have to look into some stuff like what transmission that is, what's going on with that rear end, those torque boxes, are those factory? They probably need to be welded up and reinforced. I thought I saw a crack in one of them. And we've got some oil leaks in the front of the motor, which is potentially going to be a pain because there's all sorts of pulleys there. Timing cover is connected to the valve covers, which is also connected to the oil pan. So we got to figure out where that's coming from. It looks like the whole oil pan is wet. So maybe the oil pan gasket is bad. I don't know. I got some research to do there. In the meantime, the next thing I'd like to do is get this thing back on the ground and take a look under the hood. Alright guys, actually the next day, ready to dive into stuff on the top side of the Mustang, more specifically in the engine. But really quick, I never showed you guys in the last video the trunk, and there's nothing too exciting in there, but figured it'd be worthwhile to kind of give you the whole tour of the car. So the only thing we missed was the trunk, so here's what we got. This is what I found in the trunk. This is an SVT scanner, or X4. So this is a tuner. So this is what you would use to upload your custom tune. You guys saw me use the exact same thing with the yellow Cobra. These are really common in the Ford world for loading custom tunes. Works well, pretty simple. So this goes to the car. Also found a clutch cable. This appears to be for this car as well, as far as I can tell. I don't know what brand this is, Pioneer. Someone let me know if this is a good brand, but I didn't see any problems with the clutch cable in there, but it's possible someone purchased this as the clutch was going out, hoping that it was just the cable, and then obviously realized that it was the clutch itself. And also some heat wrap, which is common because the clutch cables can get melted as they are routed somewhat close to the exhaust. So that's all that I found in the trunk as far as removable parts, but if you guys come back to the trunk itself, nothing too terribly interesting. Right off the bat, you'll notice the trim panels are missing, at least, you know, from here forward on both sides. So I'll have to locate, you know, those out of a junkyard. Everything up here looks okay. These didn't come from the factory with any trim or anything as far as I know. Trunk light works, but first thing I wanted to note is we have a Kenny Bell booster pump, and as the name implies, that's designed to provide more fuel to the stock fuel pumps or whatever fuel pumps you have in the hat, which I'm not sure of. I'm gonna assume they're stock for now. One thing that I like to see is the quarter panels are not wrinkled or, you know, have any signs of being repaired in the past. That's the original quarter panel. No Bondo, wrinkles, welding, anything like that. Wheel tubs, wheel wells look good. All original seam sealer. You know, I don't see any signs that this car was like hit and repaired really anywhere. So you know, you like to see that. This is supposed to be where the spare goes. That's long gone. This thing has got pretty severe bow in it, so might have to try and straighten that out. This is just like MDF. Tons of zip ties. What else we got? Are those coffee beans? Some assorted hardware, but yeah, pretty much empty in here. But just wanted to show you guys a few things that I found. I guess I don't need to buy zip ties for a while. I'm sure those will come in handy at some point during this build. Watch what happens when I slam the trunk. I mentioned this last time with these third brake lights. I guess that didn't do it very well, but yeah, these things rattle around and that's what causes them to break. Okay, let's get started on the engine. And I know you guys are saying, hey, that thing needs a clutch. Why are you starting with the engine? And I did this on the yellow Cobra. It's a good idea with a lot of used vehicles, especially one like this that appears to have had a possible hard life before it got to me. I just want to do an overall health check of the engine. So I think I'm gonna pull all 8 spark plugs, scope the cylinders, see what we see, maybe even do a compression test, see what kind of compression numbers this thing has, and then we can kind of devise a plan as far as the clutch and everything else moving forward. So pretty simple, removing the spark plugs on these cars, remove the coil covers, coils come out. It's easy on the passenger or driver's side. Passenger side's pretty easy too, just gotta remove this intake real quick right here. Pull that out, plugs come out, we can take a look at them. Let's get to work. Well, we got problems. Bad news is we are way down on compression in one of those slugs. Good news is probably a lot more content for you guys because that is a major engine issue. Excellent. But yeah, some of you guys had a keen ear just like I did, and you may have heard this car had a bit of a gallop when you cranked it over in the last video.
I tell you what.
I actually noticed it when the previous owner sent me a video.
That started in a while.
So in the back of my mind, I kind of had the fear that this was going to be the case, but I bought the car accordingly, in my opinion. So even though we clearly got issues here, I don't know what they are yet, but I'm not panicking. I still think that we can financially recover from this, but you know, we'll circle back to this in 4 or 5 months. God knows how long it's going to take to do this, and we'll see. Anyways, cylinder number, I don't know what the firing order is on these. On the driver's side, third one back is 50. Everything else was 160 to 175, which is excellent, with the exception of one that I couldn't test, and let me show you about that. So here's my setup as it came off the car, driver's side, passenger side. These all look pretty much the same, except for this one. This is our bad cylinder. You can see a lot of sheen and a lot of oil on the tip there. All the other ones have more of a carbon matte finish, which is pretty normal. And the only one that I couldn't test was this one, and I actually covered this in the last video. These 03s have 4 thread heads, which means only 4 aluminum threads are holding in your spark plug. And so a lot of times, these boosted motors, this was a huge problem in the Lightnings and the 03 Cobras. The 04s ended up getting the 9 thread heads, like the yellow one that I had. But what happens is they basically tear out the threads on the head. So a common repair is these time certs. I mangled this thing up in the vise to remove it, but the only cylinder that I couldn't check was this one. Same thing, spark plug has a nice matte carbon finish to it. Looks totally normal. I don't have a doubt in my mind that that cylinder is also somewhere between 160 and 175. Our bad cylinder is the only one that has oil all over the end of it. So we got a dead cylinder on the driver's side. So that sucks, but there's a couple things we can do to maybe see what's going on. First one being, let's get a scope down there. So I'm gonna grab my scope here, leave a link to this in the description if you guys are looking for a good scope. I got this one on Amazon a while back. Used this on the Mercedes project a lot about a year ago. But let's see if we can't see what's going on here. Down you go. So there we go. I mean, these things are always a pain to try and see anything, really. Looks like we got a glare. Hold on. There we go. That's a little bit better. Looks like we got a little bit of liquid buildup over near the cylinder wall there. But I don't see any major chunks or anything missing. The surface of the piston's got some stuff on it, but it doesn't look too terrible. There's some carbon and oil buildup and sludge. I don't really see, again, it's hard to kind of see the whole thing. A little bit wet over on that one corner, but everything else looks okay. Appears to be a stock piston. I don't know what that is over there. Probably just oil, but who knows? Hard to tell with these things, but I don't see anything obvious like, you know, the tip of a spark plug in there or half of a valve or anything like that. So the next thing I'm going to do, come on now, a leak down test. So I've used this, I think, on my Z06 right after the first season. I had the built motor in there just to check the overall health of the motor. If you guys are not familiar with the leak down test, basically it works kind of the opposite way of a typical compression test. Instead of the pressure from the cylinder pressurizing the gauge, you are pressurizing the cylinder with your shop air. and then seeing where it's leaking out. So ideally, we hook this up to the spark plug hole, pressurize the cylinder with air. The cylinder has to be at top dead center so that both valves should be closed. And then you want to listen to see where the air is escaping from. It's coming from an oil filler or a dipstick tube or, some sort of crankcase ventilation. That's typically a sign of bad rings. If it's coming from the radiator cap, that could be a head gasket or a cracked block. If it's coming from the exhaust, then that's usually a bad exhaust valve. If you start hearing it out of the intake, that's usually a bad intake valve. So we're down. We're down bad. Big sad. But let's see if we can't figure out where this thing's coming from and maybe come up with some type of plan here. But my boy Blue here is hurt. He's hurt and he needs our help. So let's see if we can't figure out what's hurting. Point at it. Show me where it's hurting. All right, guys, so the way that I'm going to conduct this leak down test is, or the way that a leak down test is supposed to be done is the cylinder needs to be at top dead center on the compression stroke. And the reason for that is because you need to know that both the intake and exhaust valve are closed. You're looking for areas of leakage. So obviously, if the piston is in a position that the intake or exhaust valve are open, that's going to completely negate the test. So that this test is very important that the piston that you're checking is on the compression stroke at or close to top dead center. More importantly, you just need to make sure that the intake and exhaust valve are closed. On an LS motor where the valve covers 4 bolts and comes off easily, I just check to make sure both rockers are on the base lobe and don't have any pressure on them. This car is a little bit more difficult and removing this valve cover is a pain in the butt. So what I'm going to do is use my little handy trigger here to feel when I have compression on the little compression that there is, when I have compression on this cylinder, so then at least I know I'm on the compression stroke. And then I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to swap this out for my scope, and then I'll see when that piston stops moving up, and then we'll know for sure that both the exhaust and intake valve are closed. So let's see if I can feel any compression in this poor cylinder. So that's compression right there. Actually felt a little bit of a pulse. So let me dial this out. We'll get my scope in there. All right, now I'm going to get on the crank pulley here. And now I'm going to slowly rotate and watch if the piston gets any closer or farther away. Okay, so it didn't move at all on that first pull, and then on the second one it started going back down. So safe to say I was at top dead center. So I'm just going to go back just a hair, and then we should be able to hook up our leak down tester. You can see the piston is right there at the top, right in the face of the camera by the spark plug threads right there. All right, so this is showing obviously a ton of cylinder leakage. So now we just need to hear where it's coming from. Hear a little bit out of there. I don't think I hear anything out there. I don't think I hear anything coming out the exhaust. Well, guys, don't hear anything out the intake or the exhaust. Can feel air coming through here, and check this out. We have a significant amount of air going into the crankcase, and you know what that means. Fortunately, we're not going to get away with maybe a valve job or something. It seems like we have a ring problem with this car. All the compression is escaping into the crankcase, which means it's getting past the rings and not the valves. I don't hear anything out the intake or the exhaust, so pretty much worst case scenario. Insert clip from the original Fast and Furious where Vin Diesel says, "Now me and the mad scientist have to replace the piston rings you fried."
Now me and the mad scientist gotta rip apart the block and replace the piston rings you fried.
Except it's just me. There is no mad scientist. It's just me. You know, the more I look at this, the more I wonder if that's not liquid and just like melted piston material. It's even worse for you guys, but it's also hard to see on my screen here. I'm not sure, but something ain't right in this cylinder. Like I said, I don't see, an entire piston skirt missing or anything, and the cylinder walls, as far as I can see, look okay. So not really sure why there's extremely low compression. It is making some compression, but not a lot. So, major engine issue. Low compression, most likely piston ring. Engine needs to come out, which kind of sucks, but the car did run and drive in here under its own power. It's down at least one cylinder, but it's nothing like the red Z06, which grenaded the motor and took out everything. We still might be able to get away with a reasonable cost rebuild here. The clutch needs to come out. The front timing cover needs to be resealed at this point. At least on the bright side, if we want to look at the glass half full right now, it'll at least make it easier for me to do all those seals and stuff while the motor's out, and then clutch will be a breeze and some other stuff. So this is one of probably the most extreme while you're in there case you'll ever see on my channel. But motor needs to come out. I got to do some research as to whether I want to take it out the top or the bottom. I think a lot of people would say take it out the bottom, but I don't want this car to be occupying the lift with no front wheels under it for God knows how long. And there's plenty of stuff we can do to the interior and everything else, while we're waiting for motor stuff. So I don't know. I think I want to take it out the top, but we'll see. I'm gonna kind of collect myself, clean up a little bit, come up with a plan, catch up with you guys in a little bit. All right, it is a new day, or I guess a new night here, but ready to get back to work on this thing. And we're just gonna dive right in. Like I said, the motor needs to come out one way or the other to repair the issues that it has. We obviously still definitely need a clutch. So a whole drivetrain is gonna come out. So I'm just gonna dive right in, start picking away at this thing, start taking off the stuff that we know needs to come off, and just get ready to take the motor out. Draining fluids, the shifter inside, some of the interior stuff. Eventually I'll take the hood off once I'm done with the light. My plan is to take it out the top so that the car will still be mobile with no motor in it. And I think that the way I'm going to do that is I may try and take the whole engine and transmission out together. If not, the transmission is easy enough to just unbolt and then we can leave the bell housing on there. I've got my Mustang t-shirt on that my wife bought me at Marshall's for $6. So this will hopefully give us some good luck in tearing this thing apart. But yeah, let's just start draining fluids, taking stuff off, and chipping away at getting this motor out. I'll check in with you guys shortly. Made a decent amount of progress since I last checked in with you guys. It's actually a couple days later, just been busy with other stuff as it usually goes. But let me show you what we got done. Here's our parts pile. So far, not too much stuff. Obviously the intake, spark plugs, got the fan. Hello. Both expansion tanks out, so the supercharger one right there, and then the cooling system one right there. Will you just stay put, please? Oh. Yeah, the coolant that came out of it looked really good. AKA, like, you know, mud, so that's good. So we'll probably be flushing that out. But yeah, so we freed up a bunch of room here in the front of the motor, so we can start getting a lot of this stuff off in order to remove the motor. I also was trying to remove, you guys who are familiar with these chassis will know, this lower outer pulley, or the caged supercharger lower pulley, is an absolute bear to get off. It's torqued to like 240 something foot-pounds. It's a reverse thread. So the way you typically would get it off is put the car in 6th gear, and obviously so the wheels are on the ground, rip the e-brake up, and then get on this thing with like a 5-foot breaker bar clockwise and try and get it to pop loose. That's how I've done it in the past. The problem here is the clutch in this car is so bad that even with the car in 6th gear, wheels on the ground, I can get on this breaker bar here and I can feel the clutch just slipping. So I think we're gonna have to figure something out when this thing is on an engine stand, which is obviously a little bit more difficult. Might have to try and figure out something on the flywheel or something, but cannot do it while it's in the car because the clutch will not allow it. I think my plan right now is to remove the supercharger. It's not all that difficult. That opens up this whole area, gives us more room behind the firewall there, and also gives us something to hook our engine hoist to on the iron block, which already dug out of the shed. Engine hoist and my engine stand so that we can do a teardown just like we did with the Red Z06, see what the destruction is. Seems like a lot of people on YouTube enjoyed the Red Z06 motor teardown and just seeing the carnage that was. So you guys can laugh at my expense at the, you know, engine carnage that's gonna end up costing me some money. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that one. But let's look at the positives that we discovered in this video. Obvious negative is there's serious engine damage here that is going to require the engine to come out and be rebuilt, or at very least refreshed and maybe even replaced, but we'll see what it looks like when we get it torn apart. So that is a huge downfall here, you know, the elephant in the room. But it's not all bad, I guess. There's some positives here. The biggest one that I can think of is that someone spent, I don't think it was the previous owner, and who knows if it was the one before him. I think this car's had 7 owners at this point, but someone spent a lot of money on this car, especially in the drivetrain. Right off the bat, we've confirmed that this thing has a T56 Magnum. So that is the 6-bolt rear located shifter on the T56 Magnum. Should have recognized that immediately because I did the entire Magnum swap on my 69 Camaro right here in the garage. So that alone is like a $6,000 or $7,000 transmission. The faceplating is probably even more than that. So that's a really expensive, really nice transmission in there. So that's good. And then we took a look under here and found tons and tons of solid quality aftermarket parts. I did a little bit more research off camera. Looks like there's a lot of Team Z stuff under there. The entire welded support brace that goes on the axle. We've got torque box reinforcements welded in. They look like they need a little bit of repair, but still some solid stuff there. Strange rear shocks. BMR, or no, I'm sorry, what was it? B&M differential cover, custom drive shaft probably for the T56 Magnum. Basically a fully built solid rear axle. I'd be willing to bet that if we took the wheels off and stuff, this thing has aftermarket axles in it. Might even have an aftermarket differential as well, but tons and tons of money in the drivetrain here. So a car like this, I mean, it's got a decent number of miles on it and a decent number of owners. Mods might actually, a lot of people will argue that mods don't add value, and on a lower mile car, sometimes that's true, but a car like this where someone is looking to go fast and they don't want to spend the thousands and thousands of dollars to do the things that have already been done to this car, it can add some value. I mean, especially for me, like I like to see stuff like that. That's a really expensive transmission, an expensive rear end to add all that stuff and fabricate and weld all that stuff in. It's good to see that someone spent some money on this car. Some of you guys might be wondering, you know, did the previous owner know about the low compression there? And I really don't know. This car ran, other than the gallop at the startup, it seems like it ran pretty good. It idled smooth, no check engine lights, no real knocks or ticks or anything like that. So who knows? Even if they did, I just bought a 20-year-old car with 100-something thousand miles on it that's clearly been neglected. This is on me. This is part of the game. You know, you buy a car like this, it's gonna have issues. Don't be that guy that goes back to the seller 2 months later because the alternator took a dump. Like, you bought a used car, just deal with it. If you want a brand new car with a warranty and no issues, go to the dealer and pay a premium. But if you want a project, this is what happens sometimes. So you just gotta move forward, figure out the best solution, and we're gonna do just that. But guys, that is gonna do it for this video. I think this one's getting kind of long. We learned a lot about this car, some of it not great, some of it pretty good, and we're just gonna have to roll with it at this point. In the next video, we will be pulling the engine and transmission out of this car, seeing what kind of damage we got. You guys are not gonna wanna miss that. I'm sure it's gonna be interesting, and I'm gonna get started right now. I'm gonna end this video and then just get to work right now, pulling this thing out. So thank you guys as always for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.